who would you be and what would you have achieved if you were just 1,000 times more bolder? The question has nothing to do with your capability, but everything to do with the permission you give yourself to become. And when you see it that way, your pursuit as someone who is stewarding the very dreams of God changes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Lubizi altar call. When you were talking Lapaya Panze, we were talking about, you were still telling me about that contradictory situation.
Going after stuff, even though you don't have the necessary resources,
Yeah.
right? But and effectively doing it as though you do.
How does that work?
that was and I framed it for you though.
Utheni? Angisakhumbuli.
So I gave you the example, Uguti. Think about when we all wanted to go to varsity, right? And we're going to like expensive universities.
Yeah.
And Ibiza, and was like, Chai, just I can't afford this thing, right?
Yeah.
It didn't stop your ambition for going after a particular dream or goal. So you still did what you needed to do to increase the probability of you actually achieving that outcome, right? And I guess for us in business, you more often than not are dreaming about a particular future, strategizing towards a particular future where you are very aware of your constraints, but your constraints don't frame how you dream about how you get there, right? So you are very clear on what is the available resources that I have to do what I need to do, but you're also very clear on how the absence of those resources don't necessarily need to frame whether or not I can get there. Yeah.
And how do you see that in life generally? Because I'm thinking it's not something that, is limited to the business space.
Yeah, I think when it comes to life in general, the starting point in many ways for me has to be with like what you're playing for, right? I think if you start life with the frame of reference of what I don't have to think about what I can achieve, you'll never get anywhere.
Sure. Please repeat that.
Like, so if you start life from the frame of reference of what I don't have, right, you will never achieve anything, right? And the way I see things is everything I need is around me, and if it's not here, it's in someone else's hands, right?
And where does that perspective come from? Because I'm sure it had to be planted somehow.
Yeah, I guess obviously, as you know, I'm Christian, bro. And there's always a reference of faith, right? And that reference of faith is largely been informed by the Word of God as to, I don't see world from the realm of limitation, right? If I need $1 billion tomorrow, I'm going to find a way to get it.
And maybe please get it for me.
but the point is this, right? If you're going after resources gravitate to solutions, right? Resources gravitate towards individuals who are actively pursuing purpose, right?
Okay.
And more often than not, in my experience, resources have always gravitated towards me, specifically in instances where I am pursuing purpose in service of others.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll get to the whole issue of purpose, or the whole idea of purpose, because that's basically what this conversation is about.
Sure.
But I want us to start with just a little bit of background,
Cool.
just to get to know you a bit. We know you as Brother Prince.
Oh my word, guys. I'm deeper than that. I'm cooler than the Brother Prince, what you call it, persona, but I am
the Brother Prince.
Listen, man, that's the point. I'm at the door. I'm like, I'm Brother Prince. Y'all must not wild. Don't come at me sideways. I'm joking. So extra, guys. Wow. No, on a serious note, Flip, you know what actually really inspired the Brother Prince thought process. So there's this particular man of God I've been watching, Brother Keith Moore, man.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a preacher on faith, right? And he's got such an amazing church. And he's impacted my life in such a absolutely unique way. He's a gray, bearded, white man in Sarasota in the US, and he preaches on faith, right? So, yeah. So the long story short on Brother Keith is he's doing so well in ministry, and he doesn't call himself apostle, doctor, reverend, all of that sort of jazz. Like, he's Brother Keith Moore. And I'm just like, guys, why the title? Why can't we all just be Oprah? That guy's. And I found that was cool, bro. I was like, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I feel like you are taking me now.
No, not even. Not even. Listen, Dr. Ndaba,
It feels like a direct attack on me on my podcast.
Nah.
Why the title?
No, hear me right. This has nothing to do with academic achievements, right? If you want to hold on to doctor, go for it. And I believe we should recognize you as Dr. Ndab, right? But I'm just saying within church contexts, right? Because more often than not, like, when you are Neku, pastor, bishop, apostle, prophet, all of this thing, it creates a sort of mystique around you. And I'm just like, in heaven, no one's going to be calling you Prophet Joel, bro. You're going to be Brother Joel. Like, Father Abraham, you know, Elijah. We're probably going to call Elijah by his first name. No one's going to be like Prophet Elijah or Apostle Paul. No, it's going to be like Brother Paul.
Wow.
Right? You know, and that's the kind of like my headspace, or you'll just call them Paul, depending on which side of the tracks, like in terms of like the Christian faith you grew up in, right? So for me, the whole thing of being Upratha was just like creating this sense of relax, Brother Prince. Yeah.
Is there another purpose that it serves?
Well, listen, man, I can neither not confirm nor deny on the podcast. Let's keep it moving. No, but on a serious note, like there's zero sort of thing. I just think like one, I just like the Brother Prince situation, guys. And I'm the only one who calls myself Brother Prince, and I'm happy.
And we're Brother Prince.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, the brand sticks. I'm good. Yeah.
No, that's nice, man. It's always funny when you go up on stage. It's like, I'm Brother Prince.
Yeah, shout out.
So tell me about then the faith heritage. I know you come from like a Christian home.
Sure.
How was it like then growing up in that Christian environment?
Cool, man. So probably to ground things a bit, like, so definitely grew up in a Christian home, grew up in a small town in the Eastern Cape called Queenstown, right? And yeah, man, I'm Nigerian by birth, but South African through and through as well. Like, I'm a citizen. Shout out.
Yeah.
I voted.
Yeah.
So like I always often tease and I say like, cool, hardware is Nigerian, but software is like fully South African. And
Wow.
no, like fully, like it's just the duality I have to straddle in life. And in terms of the heritage of faith, I grew up in like life was faith for me, right? Like that was life. Like life consistently was a matter of faith as it relates to the dreams I had. I was a kid who had crazy dreams. I grew up in a conservative Nigerian household where there was a particular path that you should ordinarily have taken. I should have ended up a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, or something of that sort. And here I am. I decided to go into entrepreneurship. Like, what the hell are you doing with your life? You are
You've never worked since you left varsity.
Exactly. I've never worked for corporate, right? And I guess for the most part, Kwabazali, that was probably a very violent thought for them. And that journey of entrepreneurship really required faith, right? The journey of wanting to go to UCT required faith. The journey of starting our business required faith. The journey of wanting to be in debating required faith, because many times, like I said, growing up in a Nigerian conservative household, for me in particular, meant that my parents only believe the reason I went to school is to like get a good education, be a strong academic, and like, bro, not go through the struggles we went through, right? Like, go be a lawyer, go be an engineer, go be an economist. And I was like, but I want to build stuff, right?
Yeah.
I want to change the world. I don't like the status quo. I want to agitate. I want to be innovative. I want to push the boundaries. And to do that in an environment where your parents mean well, but they mean well. Emphasis, they mean well. Um, and the consequence of which is that your ideas of what the world can or can't be are not easily accepted in that frame of reference meant that I had to create an alternative reality for myself, and that alternative reality became faith. That that was ultimately grounded on the very Christianity they gave me, right?
Yeah.
And I had to walk in that and began to see it manifesting in front of me. So my life became the outlived expressions of the dreams of God because I walked in the faith that God gave me to start achieving, in part, some of those outcomes.
And how did you negotiate that idea of entrepreneurship when the parents expected this? How did that conversation go?
It's not negotiated.
Oh, okay.
Right. It's not negotiated. The reality is that you choose a certain path and you know you're going to get flack for it, and then you bite the bullet, right?
Sure.
It's,
Because I'm asking this because I've had people ask me how do I deal with this because my parents want me to do medicine. There was somebody who asked me specifically about medicine, but I wanted to do something different. And as a child, how do you handle that?
right. Listen, I think I'll tell you, and this is probably because I think my sister and I were low key like, I feel like if in another world we were probably struggle heroes in our own home, bro. we pushed, we were low key like comrades, man. I'm a guerrilla, bro. But like on the good side, right? And I guess what I mean by that is this: is that your parents are always going to mean well about your dreams and goals, and I think what you've got to be able to accept is, um, your dreams are your dreams,
Mm,
right? There's never going to be an easy outcome. You're going to leave someone disappointed, right? It's a violent thing to accept,
yeah.
or an uncomfortable, inconvenient truth. But I don't want to frame the idea of the pursuit of your dreams and goals as a negotiated settlement like Odessa. It's not.
Okay.
It really isn't, right? Your dreams are your dreams. Your life is your life, right? And that which you're pursuing obviously requires you to apply a frame of reference of faith, a frame of reference of respect and honor, because that's the value system that we hold dear as Christians.
Yeah.
And by no means am I advocating that any child, son or daughter should go and disrespect their parents in the pursuit of their dreams. But when you do come of age, you've got to realize that at a certain point, you need to break free from the idea that you are going to have to keep everybody happy with the decisions you're making. And for me, that reality came at 19, right?
What happened at 19?
Oh, my word. Are we going there?
Let's go there. What happened at 19?
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess really what happened at 19 was I decided I'm going to do me, right? I decided I'm going to go after what I genuinely believe God is speaking to me about with respect to entrepreneurship and my dreams and goals, right? Did I have a clear picture? No. Did I know exactly what it was? No. Did I know that this is what I needed to do? Yes. Did I understand how I was going to get there? No. Did I go after it? Yes. Did I die? No.
Yeah.
I'm here. Are my parents happy? Yes. Did we buy them a house this year? Yes. Are they happier? Yes. Is God glorified? Yes. But that's a 10-year journey, right?
Yeah. And a lot happened in the 10 years.
And a lot happened. A lot happens in 10 years. A lot of misunderstanding happens in 10 years. A lot of negotiating happens in 10 years. A lot of misunderstanding happens in 10 years. A lot of pain happens in 10 years. A lot of love happens in 10 years. The truth of the matter is that life and your dreams will always be strewn with complexities that you have to be able to navigate. And your anchor has to be faith, right? You are never going to be able to achieve what you've been called to do seeking the permissions of those around you, and more specifically, the people who love you the most, because the people who love you the most have a tendency of wanting to protect you, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that you must be, and I think this is the tension that people struggle, right? It doesn't necessarily mean you must be closed off to counsel, because you can, because I also got to that point, right?
Yeah.
There was a point in my pursuit of my dreams and goals that I was like, I'm going after this, I want a lot. And God humbled me, right?
Yeah.
And it was necessary for me to go through that season of being humble, go through that season of losing it all, go through that season of 7 months and no income, go through that season of pain and difficulty, and being told to just be a man and navigate it, right? But realize that God was doing something deeper, that I realized it had nothing to do with me proving a point to my parents. It had nothing to do with me proving a point to myself, but it had everything to do with me focusing on who I'm becoming in the process of achieving the dreams and goals that God gave me, right? And for me, the tension and what I had to learn was that in the process of becoming, the first thing you've got to acknowledge is you don't know it all.
Yeah.
And that even dissenting voices have value. Your parents, even though they disagree with you, have value. Their voice still matters. Their voice still counts. Like, they can say things to you that you fundamentally disagree with, but you've got to listen to what they're not saying.
Yeah.
Right? And the wisdom is also drawn in that, the ability to appreciate dissenting voices, whether friends, whether partners, like, and I think there's a maturity that's come with time for me. Because I think what happens in the journey, because you find yourself at times thinking that you're fighting against the world, when in actual fact you're actually fighting against the previous version of who you were, right? Um, you realize the power of dissenting voices in your journey. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the resistance I experienced from my parents. I'm grateful from the resistance that I experienced for certain parts of my community. I'm grateful for it because I see the wisdom in what they were saying, and I see how that shaped me, even though I did not take or follow through on what they hoped I would become.
Sure.
Yeah.
You've said so many things, Prince. So I wanna just like double click on a few of the things you have spoken about.
Cool.
And it's a very like deep story. In a sense that one, you're speaking about your dreams
Mm.
and goals, and then you're speaking about purpose. What's the relationship between the two?
Dreams, goal, and purpose, right? So when you think about your dreams and goals, or at least when I think about my dreams and goals, right? My dreams and goals must first and foremost be anchored in what I believe I've been called to achieve, right? Um, and those dreams and goals, for me, more often than not, at times, are a function of what I believe God's called me to do, right? Purpose for me is a function of usefulness,
Sure.
right?
Unpack that.
What I mean by purpose being a function of usefulness, if you think of, by way of example, any, let's say, you are putting together some equipment, right? Or let's say you bought not a microwave. A microwave is a boring item. Oh my word! Like, let's say you're putting together like a TV stand or something, right? And what are you actually asking of those pieces? The question you're asking of this particular piece is, what's your purpose? It's really directly translated is what's the usefulness of this thing in this moment? Like if you, the purpose of the screwdriver is found in its usefulness, right? So for me, the relationship is that usefulness, my usefulness in context is a transient outcome. It's largely a function of context, right?
Yeah.
Dreams and goals become a function of timing, not necessarily a function of outcome, right? So I don't see my dreams as a end point, right? Um, I see them as a continuum. That's why I say I see them as a function of timing. Yeah.
And is there ever a contradiction between the two where you dream about something that maybe might kind of be contradictory to what your purpose is?
Like I could dream about wanting to be a footballer, but like, hey, yo, bro. I mean, like, listen, as a child, I thought like, hey, yo, I go play for Manchester, but Charlie, look at where I am. You know, I'm here on a podcast with you, right? So it's not a bad outcome.
No, not at all.
But like on a serious note, listen, when you dream about when you have dreams and goals that are delinked from your usefulness, you need counseling. You legit, bro. What are you doing?
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Sorry, one of the things about me, I'm a straight shooter, right? You need mentorship, you need guidance, you need counseling, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Because it might be that, listen, I've got this dream, but I'm not clear about what my usefulness is in this moment. And actually, it might be that your dream is not wrong. You just have to upscale yourself so that your usefulness can match up with your dream.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I mean. You need counseling, you need mentorship, you need that. You want there to be it's advisable for there to be a link. Right. I highly recommend it.
And have you had any experience of the mentorship? What role has it played in your journey of purpose?
It's been absolutely critical, right? Beware of people who don't have mentors. Beware of people who don't have people who are speaking into their lives. Beware of people who act like they know it all, right?
Yo.
Because that person is going to lead you into a hole, right? You in isiZulu nesiXhosa sikhuluma ngokuthi indlela ibizwa kwabaphambili, right? The whole idea is to say that you're not the first one to do what you're trying to do, right? I'm not the first one to have a dream. I'm not the first one to have a vision or a goal or an ambition to build a business or try to do a PhD or whatever the case may be. You're not the first one. And the idea of mentorship and counsel has less to do with you losing your authenticity, but has everything to do with speeding up your development, right? With preserving you from unnecessary errors. And in my journey, right, people that have been instrumental at multiple levels have been people have been in business, right? Both local and international. Funny enough, a lot of old white men have been like absolute blessings in my life from a mentorship and a guidance perspective, specifically in business. From a personal development level, like a lot of my spiritual leaders growing up in church have played a critical role in guiding and shaping who I have become. At a value system level, my parents, my mom, my dad have been critical in that, right? And then also like older brothers and sisters in the community of faith, right? Who I can have very transparent, open conversations with and really be able to glean from their wisdom. And they share transparently about some of the mistakes and challenges that they've had and be able to guide me so I don't make those missteps, right? So I think your ability to be able to discern your mentors and pick them out and building that capability is absolutely critical to your ability to advance in life, right?
But how do we build it?
How you build it is first and foremost by appreciating where you're lacking, right? And it requires self-awareness, right? You've got to be able to know that, like, I'm a horrible money manager, right? Okay, so if you're a horrible money manager, like, what books are you reading? right? How are you actively getting mentored? And mentors don't necessarily have to be close to you in the moment.
Yeah.
They could be books, they could be people, they could be individuals that capture the dimension of the weakness that you're trying to solve for,
Sure.
right?
That's powerful because I think a lot of us, when we think about mentorship, we think about finding a particular person that maybe is a role model to us
Mm,
and then saying, okay, would you please be my mentor? Would you please be my
mm,
mentor? Whereas sometimes the people that we really look up to don't really have the time to sit with you
mm,
and talk,
mm,
and talk you through stuff, but they've written books that, you know, they've spent time
mm,
writing and thinking about from
mm.
their own experiences, their own wisdom, and they're pouring into that book. And then, you can be able to access that instead of wanting to access the person. I think
Sure.
that's very important.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And yeah, man, I think it's just so important for you to have um what I call truth moments,
Mm,
right? You've got to be able to stare yourself in the face and be like, hey yo, I'm losing the plot in this area. Or I don't have a clear understanding of how to build a team.
mm,
And your honesty, the quality of the honesty you have with yourself will ultimately determine the honor you have in life, right? Your failure to be honest with yourself in particular dimensions of your life will consequently affect the quality of honor you end up attaining, right? And that for me means that in order to be honest, you've got to be able to humble yourself,
sure.
because being taught is a humbling experience,
Is
right?
it is.
When you're saying, I'm willing to be taught, you are acknowledging one, your ignorance, acknowledging your insufficiency,
Mm,
and accepting that someone else knows better and is in a position to teach you how to get to where you need to get to. And that is directly linked to the principles we learn in scripture that God resists the proud,
yeah.
but he gives grace to the humble.
Amen.
And that is a necessary thing that we need to imbibe if we are to move forward.
I want to go back to the point you said about usefulness
Cool.
and how purpose is a function of your usefulness.
Mhm.
What does purpose look like, or living a life of purpose look like from your perspective?
Purpose, from my perspective, or living a life of
Yeah.
purpose, means
Because sorry, I'm asking this because I know um we often talk about it in very abstract terms,
mm,
and we never really say, okay, in practical terms, this is how this big concept, usefulness, your why of life,
mhm.
they would say, actually translate into your daily living. What does that look like?
I don't think it's that complex, right?
Is it?
Nah, bruh. I think comrades make this thing sound deep. Like it's deep, but it's not like, ayo. It's not like, yeah, it's not like that deep.
Yeah, yeah,
But I think it's a function of exposure and insight, right? So
yeah.
to simply explain it, right? If we think about, and going back to this concept of usefulness, right? It's, what are you doing today
Mm,
to get to where you need to get to tomorrow? That for me captures the idea of usefulness with a perspective on purpose, right? If you are in grade 1
mm,
and you need to get to grade 2,
sure.
you got to make sure you're reading your books.
Mm,
You got to practice your 1+1. You got to do your, what you call it, your phonics,
mm,
your pronunciation, all of those things, but you have to do them consistently on a day-to-day basis, right?
yeah.
The attainment of what we determine to be the outcome is a function of things that you consistently need to do every single day, right? And let me give you an example. And once again, I don't want to conflate the idea, and I might inadvertently be doing that, between what I determine to be purpose, which I define as usefulness, right?
Yeah.
And the things that we achieve over this continuum and time. So But for the purposes of grounding it for the listeners, it's like, if you need to pass your degree or you need to move from point A to point B, there are certain activities you need to consistently do every single day to get to that particular point. Now, when people struggle to know what to do to get to that particular point, it has everything to do with two things.
Yeah.
They're either accepting their ignorance and not asking questions.
Sure.
Like, that's really the truth of the matter, right? And the only way you break the power of ignorance about what your purpose is to ask questions, right? So if you don't know what to do, are you asking from people who have done, right? The Bible speaks about, and sorry for Bible bashing, but listen, it dovetails into this concept of purpose, right? The Bible says, follow them who through faith and patience obtain the promise.
Yeah.
That is to say, there are men, there are women in this world who are patterns. Like, that's what I'm saying. Life is not deep. It's not like that difficult. Like, read Oprah's books if you want to become like a media mogul, right?
Yeah.
Watch her life. What is she doing? What is she doing every single day? This content is out there. If you follow her pattern, obviously contextual to your journey, your life circumstances, you will get there.
They also don't want a carbon copy.
No, asimfuna Oprah not. No, be you, right? But the point of the matter is that there are principles, right? Principles make people.
Yeah.
Right? So my point is that in the achievement of purpose, ultimately, there are patterns. The place you are going to is known. It's not unknown, right? Even Elon Musk today, yes, we thank God that he's building SpaceX and all these crazy innovations. Those innovations are new, but there are patterns he is following of innovation, of men and women who have done this before him. It's not unknown. The solutions might be novel, but the process is the same.
It's just like building a relationship between different processes that
exactly
the new thing.
Exactly.
So there's something you were talking about when we were driving here.
Cool.
That's also is linked to your idea of purpose as usefulness.
Right.
The part of service.
Yeah.
Please unpack that.
Oh my.
Because you can be useful, but it does not necessarily mean you're serving. So
cool. So no, 100%. So this is particularly for me, right? In my experience, my usefulness rather is a function of my service to humanity, right? I don't believe any of the innovations that I'm currently pushing out there in the world have anything to do with me. They have everything to do with my service to humanity. And every single idea, dream, goal, business that we've launched that has received unique favor, increase, access, recognition of any shape or sort, people were steeped at the center. The service of humanity was at its core, right? And what do I mean by the service of humanity was at its core? I was solving a problem for someone.
Yeah.
I run a lending business. I lend to people that banks would never think of touching.
Sure.
Right? And they pay me back. And I'm not a loan shark.
You said your what do you call it? Payback rate is
99.6. Right? So we're beating banks at their own game at lending to people who are worse off from a risk perspective.
Yeah.
Right? And at responsible rates, right? The heart behind our business was how do we enable informal traders and SMEs to be able to get access to financing where traditional financing institutions wouldn't even know how to finance them or give them the light of day, right? And that is a violent thought, a very violent thought, because how do you convince capital providers to trust you to give money to someone who has no credit record? What informs that level of pursuit, if not purpose, right? If not usefulness to serve this person? Because just because they don't sound like me, and they can't tell their story and they are from a township doesn't mean they shouldn't be backed. And we have stories of mamas we've backed. And I'll share this one story, right? There's a story of Mam Naria. Oh my word. Love this lady. Whenever I hear the story, we started funding her with 25,000 Rand, right? And she would pay us back every 14 days.
Sure.
Today, Mam Naria takes 105,000 Rand, right? Every 14 days. And she now has expanded. She had one store. She now has 3 stores, employs 17 people, and bought her first house for R1 million in cash, right? Ekasi, umamzo, right?
Yo.
For me, that is a story that articulates usefulness, that articulates purpose, that articulates service to humanity, right? I'm not doing this because the end game is I want to be a billionaire. If that happens, which will likely happen, cool, right?
Yeah.
But it's not the driver.
Sure.
It's not the driver. Like, even if God doesn't pay me for doing what I'm doing, I would still do this. I would still choose to go through 7 months of no pay. I would still choose to go through the fights and the arguments I had with my parents to make sure that Mam Naria today can get financing. Like that is service. That is what was driving me, right? That is the violent pursuit. That is when I talk about going after your dreams and goals. It has less to do with you, but people who are on the other side of your yes, right? And the people in your present many times don't see those people because the dream is not theirs. And you've got to be able to say yes to it. And that for me is purpose, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting the way you are talking about this, because I write about the same idea in my upcoming book.
Shout out. Shout out.
I make this point that in your search for purpose, whatever it is that you discover as your purpose, if it revolves just around you, it's not God's purpose for you.
100%.
Because I like to say you are not at the center of God's purpose for your
100%.
life, and at the center there are people that are supposed to benefit from your pursuit of purpose, which is exactly what you have
100%.
explained to us right now. And I think even in the scriptures there are like plenty of examples that demonstrate how when God gives purpose, it's always about people at the heart of it. As much as it is given to you, Mruti says it's given to you, but it's not for you. You know, yeah. I see you're bending.
Ah, man, like, listen, you literally hit the nail on the head. I wanna reach you guys in on something Lord shared with me, like in my time of prayer, right?
Sure.
And it was around innovation. Like, I'm an innovation dude, right? And God said to me in prayer that innovation at its core is God's way, right, of revealing his love to humanity, right? Which means that when God got the right brothers to figure out how to fly a plane, that was God loving on humanity. God realized that there would be people whose families are in the future going to be on different continents and separated for certain reasons. But he's going to enable people to dream about a concept of flight.
Sure.
Right? God knew that there are people in the township who are struggling with finance, and their cries got to God, right? And the Lord was like, okay, cool, I'm going to make some crazy kids have a dream on how to figure out how to build a financing business for people in the township. Your book is a response to someone's cries. And that's what I'm saying. At its core, what the Lord said to me, innovation is me loving on humanity, right?
Sure.
And God causes his rain to fall on the just and the unjust, right?
Yeah.
It's not a function of you being Christian, Muslim, Indian, or whatever the case may be, whatever your race, religion is. It's God saying, I love you. And when you see it that way, your pursuit as someone who is stewarding the very dreams of God changes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Lubisi alcohol.
Oh man.
Sure, that's deep. That's deep.
Sure.
Sure. But there's something that happens which I've had a few conversations with like some of my close friends and some of the people that I get to work with in my own
Cool.
business as well.
Cool.
Um and recently I was talking to someone and I sensed um a form of discouragement
Mm.
that comes from serving people,
Mm.
but sometimes feeling like I'm not being served,
Mm.
or feeling like I'm pouring out to people, I'm pouring out myself into people, I'm serving people, but no one is pouring into me.
Mm.
Um, and the people that I'm pouring into are benefiting from what I'm pouring into them, but they're not appreciative. I remember another story where even in the context of church, somebody was telling me within their church they feel like they're not being appreciated, but they're putting in so much. Um, how do you deal with that when purpose is about serving? How do you deal with that kind of discouragement, um, or feeling like nobody is pouring into you, nobody is serving you when you are serving, humanity?
Mm. Kosiami. Listen, man. Firstly, I want to acknowledge that it's a real thing, right?
Yeah.
It happens. It's not something it's not something that's easy to navigate, right? But my two cents of perspective on this is really around when you start realizing that your energy is getting low, you've got to you've got to rebase,
Mm.
right? And many times in the process and the pursuit of dream, you forget about yourself, right? You gotta find ways to take care of you,
Mm.
right? The people like it's the Lord doesn't look to the people that he's dying on the cross for and saying, "Hey yo, can't y'all see I'm dying on the cross? What's wrong with y'all, bro?" That's not the Lord's response, right?
Yeah.
Right? The Lord knew that every time he finished serving, he needed to draw back and refill.
Yeah.
And many times when we burn out, it's because we're not drawing back enough,
Sure.
right? Joseph needed to be drawn away,
Mm.
right? He needed to, he was pouring himself so out in the house of Potiphar that he just needed prison for a bit, right?
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
He actually needed prison for a bit. Prison was a garden break for him, bro, because
Wow.
he needed time. He needed time to rebase. And even now, instead of serving the entire household or probably the general of the armies of Egypt, he was with two prisoners
Mm.
and he was the warden of his prison block. We can manage that, bro.
Yeah.
Right? He needed to reflect on the quality of responsibility that he had and actually rebase.
As you're talking about that, I'm just thinking about how if we don't do it voluntarily, circumstances will
100%.
force you to
100%.
do it. That's why people who are who've been like working, overworking, then
That's
end
right.
up struggling with things like burnout and
100%.
they suffer from stress related disorders, and those are forcing you to say, hey, you've been pouring out too
100%.
much. So you spoke about how the Lord would always withdraw and recharge.
Mhm.
But there's this saying that says people who are appreciated will do more than what is expected. And
Mhm.
then this person I was talking to was telling me how they don't feel like the people who are benefiting from them
Mhm.
appreciate what he has to offer. And I sensed a very strong sense of discouragement from that.
So there's a principle in life, right? You never stop serving up until you serve kings,
Sure.
right?
Unpack that.
What that means is that you will always start serving people, more often than not, who don't immediately appreciate the quality of who you are. Let's go back to Joseph. Joseph was serving in his family's house.
Yeah.
They didn't see him. Cool. He moved over, sold into slavery, and served in Potiphar's house. They kind of saw him, right? And then he eventually went into the pit. Even there, the prisoner, the chief prisoner or guy in charge of rather the king's prison was like, okay, we see you, but I'll just give you but eventually the king saw him, right? The principle with Joseph is Joseph never stopped serving, right? David starts fighting off bears and lions and wolves, right? He doesn't say, "Oh, but I've been anointed king," right? What the hell's going on, right? You know where you're called to be, but you never start where you're called to be.
Sure.
And that's and in the service of others, you never look to the people you are serving. You look to the one who called you, right? And the person who's getting frustrated and who's getting burned out is because they're looking to the people they're serving and not the one who called them. You have been called to serve kings, right? But if you die out serving princes, you'll never get the reward of a king.
Sure.
If you die out serving governors or the governor's tea lady, you will never end up serving kings. And that is why I said to you, the last thing you should give to an entrepreneur is money, right? The first thing you should give to any founder of anything or any dreamer of any shape is resilience.
Sure.
Right? Resilience for me is the first ingredient that you require if you're going to dare to dream. Money is the byproduct, bro. Like that can come last. Once we've made sure that you've captured resilience, Ndwana, so billion, right? Because if that billion finishes, you're not there because of the money.
Yeah.
You are there because of mission.
Sure.
Right? And by nature, we are missional people. Right? We don't care what's going to happen. We're like, listen, if we die here, we die on our feet.
Sure.
We don't bow on our knees, right? We don't go out on our knees. And when it comes to service, the kind of service and mindset you need to have is that these people are ladders. They're not my destination.
Yeah.
They are the people I am called to serve. And by virtue of the quality of my service, the Lord will promote me. But what am I doing? If I get frustrated with the sheep, will I ever lead the nation? I can't be a David who's frustrated with sheep and want to be a king.
In Luke 19:13.
Shout out.
In Luke 19:13 is exactly what's happening. This nobleman gives instructions to his servants and says, occupy until I come.
That's right.
Do business with this money until I come
That's
back.
right.
He goes away, he comes back and is like, okay, let's see, what did you do with it?
Sure.
And then the other one says, hey, I 10x'd it. The other one says, I brought 5 more. The other one's like, hey, me, I was scared. So I hid the money you gave me in a handkerchief.
That's right.
At least it was not under the couch.
Hey. Wow. Wow. Now you my uncle Grootman.
The guy says, I hid the money in a handkerchief.
Wow, yeah.
But where I'm going to, it's what this nobleman says to the guys who actually did something with the money that they were given. It's like, well done, good and faithful servant.
Sure.
Because you are faithful with the least, you'll be trusted with more.
That's right.
You are faithful with handling this money. Is it asset management? What do you call it? Handling this money, then I'm going to make you in charge of 10 cities.
That's right.
Which is like management at a different or
100%.
leadership at a different scale, which is exactly what you're talking about. So when we are faithful with whatever God has set in front of us,
Yeah.
we know we can be trusted with more.
100%, man, 100%. And you're hitting it on the head. And listen, the truth of the matter is that we can glorify the idea of service and forget the fact that it comes with complexity,
Yeah.
right? Sheep are stubborn. Be straight up, right? I mean, shout out to pastors who are leading people like me.
Sure.
We're stubborn,
Imagine.
right? Pastor Martin, bro, you are a blessing and a half. But like the truth of the matter is that sheep are stubborn, right? We are sheep are not easy to, they're not malleable very quickly, right? And the reality of the matter is that if you don't build once again the capability to live in the complexity of your service, or to embrace the complexity your service comes with, you will forfeit your promotion.
Sure.
Right? And you've got to, and the truth is the matter is that you're constantly in different kinds of tension. Today the tension will be appreciation. Tomorrow the tension might be recognition. Tomorrow the tension might be how they spoke to you. The next day might be the fact that you're ignored. Bro, the minute you keep making this thing about you, you are losing.
Yeah.
Right? You've got to, service fundamentally means a denial of self.
Sure.
Jesus washes people's feet. Right? The King of Glory, the Ancient of Days. Like, I don't know, like, Peter and them were like top tier, bro. Like, for the King of Glory to wash your feet, right? Umdali womzulu nomhlaba, to wash your feet, to have that privilege, right? You've got to understand the level. I ask myself, what was going through his mind? But I could probably give you my answer to that is nothing. Because for him, this was service.
Sure.
Right? He had already delinked his position, his case. And this is the thing. When you are too conscious of who you are, what you think you bring to the table within the context of what you're serving or who you're serving, you start being blinded by why you are there in the first place. Your gifts can blind you. And it's a dangerous place to be. And that's why I understand the pain of the moment.
Yeah.
But I encourage whoever that brother or sister is to take their eyes off the people, to take their eyes off the organization or the individual or the circumstance and reframe their perspective on God. He's the one who called them.
Sure. As part of the complexity you're talking about, I'm thinking about something you once said to me in one of the conversations, mentorship conversations we had.
Wow, he's so extra.
You spoke about obedience and you spoke about a deep sense of agency.
Yeah.
In relation to purpose and in relation to service. So in my head, the other complexity that's there in this, journey of purpose is that you have instructions from God, and then you are dealing with things like fear, you are dealing with things like discouragement, you are dealing with things like confusion. But there's also that element of obedience that God expects from you. How do we navigate that? And then also speak to that idea of a deep sense of agency.
Right. Sure. Obedience is the only system through which the consequences of his goodness can find expression in my life. So, what that means is that God wants to be good to me. He is dying to be good to me. He desperately wants to manifest his goodness in my life, but the only way he can do it is by giving me instruction that I need to be obedient to.
Yeah.
Right? And so God is good, but I can't access that goodness outside of obedience.
Yeah.
So if I'm stuck in fear, I will stay in fear and I won't access his goodness. So the question is, how much do I want his goodness? How quickly do I want to experience his goodness? I need to obey. I need to overcome fear. And you overcome fear, right, by doing. Now, the principle is this. Sometimes people might be like, Prince, I am heavily debilitated by this fear. Like, what are you talking about? You're not helping me. Like, how do I overcome this? Nah. You're not helping. Great. Cool. I hear that. Shout out. I agree. I am not helping. But this will probably help, right? Obedience requires you to recognize that you don't know tomorrow. But the person who's telling you to do this does. Right? If you've received an instruction from the owner of time and seasons, and he has a panoramic view of the lifetime that you've been called to live,
Sure.
why will you let something as momentary as fear have a greater weighting than the God of eternity? Right? And that's when I realized every single time we have bought into some sort of fear or anxiety, as Pastor Martin has taught us, we have bought into a reality that there is a day where God won't be good to us. Yeah? Where God will not be good to us. So for me, that liberates me into obedience, right? Because I'm like, hey guys, listen, if I go left, go lit. If I go right, go lit. Hey yo, let's just obey God, right? Because I don't control the variables, but I can control my obedience. And more often than not, what debilitates people who are sitting with fear is their inability to recognize that you can't control the outcomes. But we're so focused on controlling the outcomes. And that's what actually stirs fear, right? Because you're like, oh, I don't know what this could become. Or what if it doesn't go? Okay, what if your worst fears happen? Then what? Let's actually entertain that idea. Has God died? No, he hasn't. Cool, maybe you're short on rent, but like, you're not the first one. It's not nice. It's not exciting. You're probably going to be a bit like sad about it. But follow them through faith and patience, who through faith and patience obtained the promise.
Amen.
Right? You will get there. You will get through it. And there is, for me, the practical outcome is step one. If you're struggling with any level of fear, do things that deliberately put yourself in a space of discomfort, no matter how small, every single day. And maybe something that might put you in a space, something that puts you in a space of discomfort, could be like, maybe your discomfort is like
Public speaking,
right? Or asking more questions. Be deliberate about building that muscle, right? Because the minute you start doing those small activities, speaking up, sharing your view, even if you know in a week in an office meeting you never speak, make a deliberate commitment that you will make one contribution each week, and you'll make sure that it's at least 30 seconds long.
Yeah.
And that begins to build the muscle for you to realize that, oh, actually, this discomfort is, this fear, as we know what fear stands for, false evidence appearing real,
Yep.
right, is actually a tool of the enemy to deceive us, right? All sin is a function of deception. All fear is a function of deception.
Yeah.
It presents a picture of an alternative reality that is not yet true, but that forces you to believe in it as though it were, and then augments your behavior
Sure.
against the instruction of God's word. Whereas faith and grace enables you. Grace is the empowerment that enables you to be obedient. So, yeah.
You are reminding me of Hidden Potential. Adam Grant. He speaks about this issue of this problem of fear, and how he takes it further and says you must actually seek out those kinds of situations that make you uncomfortable, because it is in that discomfort where the growth is. Yeah. So
100%.
that's very powerful. Thank you so much. We've spoken it's over an hour now.
Oh, really? Oh, my word. That's crazy.
It's over an hour, but I still wanted you to speak about the issue of honor in pursuit of purpose, the role of honor.
Hmm.
And what is this idea of honor?
Cool. Cool. So the idea of honor, simply put, honor at its core is recognizing the difference in men,
Sure.
right? And what that simply means is that you are able to understand the unique and distinct contributions of people in certain spaces, in certain environments, and in particular in your life. And you are able to recognize that and attach a level of appreciation to that, right? Um, and that appreciation that you attach to that ends up augmenting the way you behave towards them, right? Um, in honoring who they are and what they bring to the table. And honor is not just something you give vertically, it's something you give horizontally. And I would never say it's something you give downwards, because I don't think you should ever view anyone as below you,
Yeah.
right? Whether it is the tea lady at work, whether it's the president, right? The point of the matter is that honor flows vertically and horizontally as well. So, recognizing the difference in men, and the power of honor is that honor is a system that forces promotion without you even knowing it, right? Honor has the capability to preserve your life, right? Honoring your security guard
Yeah.
can help you ensure that your car doesn't get stolen, right?
Yeah.
Honoring the tea lady can ensure that you get extra biscuits at work, right? But far more importantly, she can give you intel on who's saying what about you in which boardroom,
Yeah.
because she's bringing tea. So the point of the matter is that honor enables you to recognize the difference in men at a practical level. How you manifest that honor to these individuals is not just in how you speak and treat people alone, right? Um, but I believe it's also in how you make them feel, right? At its core, right? And this is a principle I've learned. Everyone wants to feel heard. Everyone wants to feel loved. Everyone wants to feel appreciated
Seen.
and seen, bro. So if you can do that for everyone you meet, make sure they feel heard, loved, appreciated, and seen, you're honoring them. You're honoring them. And the truth of the world, the truth of it is that the world is a place where people don't get that. That is a rare commodity. And people gravitate to people who honor them. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Brother Prince.
Shout out!
This
Shout
has
out.
been a very interesting conversation. I've been longing to have it with you. And thank you so much for the insights you have shared. Maybe let me just ask, what are your parting shots to the people who are watching and not listening?
Oh my word. Firstly, let me say thank you for having me on the show. It's an absolute privilege. I don't take it lightly. I am deeply grateful. Thank you for welcoming me into your amazing studio. And I am so blessed to be here. Parting shots is, I'll give you the words that my professor, when I started, when I had began my master's thesis, or sorry, not master's thesis, master's program a while back, um, I was the youngest person in the class, I think, in the history of the course when I started it. And I was doing a master's in inclusive innovation at the time. And our professor, who was the course convener, a gentleman by the name of Prof. Warren Wilkinson, at the UCT Business School, he starts the lecture with this question. I like terming these questions violent questions or violent thoughts. And he says this. He says, who would you be And what would you have achieved if you're just 1,000 times more bolder? And that's my parting shot. Who would you be and what would you have achieved if you were just 1,000 times more bolder? The question has nothing to do with your capability, but everything to do with the permission you give yourself to become.